So first episode, welcome everybody to Behind the Glass with Max Marko. First guest, obviously, Coach Bergeron. Gotta have the coach on the first guest. So how was your summer?
My summer was good.
Yeah?
My summer was good, yeah. Relaxing.
Did you get to hang out with the family, everything?
Yeah, my wife and I have two older sons. I mean, I guess older enough to not want to hang out with their parents very often. So her and I hang out a little bit. I play a little bit of golf. We visited Canada a couple times, so nothing crazy, but like I say, pretty relaxing.
Did you get to go to a Blue Jays game at all?
I didn't go to a Blue Jays game. No, I was in Toronto. I was in Ottawa, but went to a couple concerts, but no professional baseball.
Any bands in particular?
Well, Bon Jovi. We saw Bon Jovi in Toronto, which was pretty good. We saw Journey and Def Leppard in Detroit, which was really good. So it was a good summer.
Totally, cool. So what would you say was your biggest learning experience from all of your time in Miami? Like playing and coaching included in that.
My biggest learning experience? Well, from when I got there, I wasn't overly sure what I was walking into from a job perspective. And I would say, and this is me, but this job is 100% about people. And when you try to cut a corner on a wiring of a person, it just doesn't work out in our business because we set expectations and standards pretty high. And that's what I learned. And over the course of the 10 years that I was there, we really solidified and established ourselves as that's what we're looking for. Obviously, you have to be able to play the game. There's no doubt about that. You have to be able to perform in the classroom. But it always came back to people first, and that is probably, from a 30,000 foot perspective, the biggest thing I learned, that this job is 100% about people.
So would you say that's still the same now as it was then?
100%. When I got this opportunity to come to Bowling Green, after I talked to my family about the move, it was then immediately to people. And I think about Barry and Ty and their families, and for me to be able to ask those two to pick up and move to come be part of this, and them to want to do it, and then we're 2 weeks away or 10 days away from starting our 9th season together. I think that reaffirms what I just said about the people. This is 100% about the people that are involved, and that starts with the coaches and goes to the trainers and the equipment staff, and then obviously the players. And if anything, I'm more solidified in that than I ever have been. But I feel like that's probably the biggest thing I learned from when I stepped foot on that campus as an assistant coach to today. I feel like we are solid in that fact, and it starts and ends with people.
And you talked about your assistants, Coach when they started out here with you, they had limited experience. I think I would say, but how have they grown in their tenure? Well,
I think first and foremost, they've established themselves as recruiters. I mean, the recruiting for us is the lifeline, and it goes back to the people, but you have to go find the people. And 9 years ago, it's hard to know if you're right. You think you're right, but you're not quite sure. They both established themselves as recruiters, and I do think that they've both learned the balance between recruiting and coaching, because it is difficult. You have to truly have that balance. When it's recruiting time, you're focused and you're recruiting, and when it's coaching time, you almost have to leave recruiting at the door and coach. One of them runs our D and one of them runs our forwards, and I feel like they've done a really good job of doing that. And that's probably the biggest area of growth. First and foremost, establishing their eye in recruiting, and secondly, being able to really balance the recruiting and the coaching piece of their job.
So speaking of first coming in here, the message that you wanted to send was hockey is here to stay in Bowling Green. What would you say the message is now?
The message is now that we are a hockey program again, and I know what that means when you say that on this campus because of the people before us. The responsibility that I talked about in 2010, I had no idea how deep that responsibility went, and I believe now we do know what that means. So I believe that this is a hockey program again, meaning we're competing for championships. We're competing to be in the national tournament, and that's just not coach speak. That's true. That is where the 8 years of hard work comes into play. We've established ourselves as a winning program. We've established ourselves as a team that expects good things to happen every time they step on the ice. Now it's time for us to kick that door down and actually win something. And we understand we've been close, but close isn't good enough. And again, when you're talking about a program like Bowling Green, that's all they've done is win. And not only win, but they've produced professional hockey players. And we feel like that's where we are again. And all of that while our guys are making an impact on the campus as students. So that to me is a mouthful, but it is something that we've established ourselves as, and we feel like we're living it every day.
Speaking of the success that you had last year, obviously the GLI, obviously that being in Detroit, were you able to get in contact with Jeff Blashill, coach of Detroit Red Wings, and just talk about that special connection that you guys shared at Miami?
Yeah, well, Jeff and I have been friends probably since, I guess, 2002. And when you're assistant coaches together at the college level, you almost have to be closer to one another than you are to the head coach because of all the recruiting. Getting back to that talk again, and you do so much discussing of how to build this team. And we were together for 6 years, and I think it was 08 or 07 when he left. We've been pretty close since then. He's gone on a little bit of a different path than I have. But it's still a coaching path, and we still are connected with our friendship and our family's friendship. So go up there last year. Just to be invited to the tournament, number one, is great. It's one of the longer standing tournaments, and for somebody like myself who grew up in the CCHA and knows college hockey kind of in this area, the GLI is the tournament. So to get invited was great. To get invited in the transition year into the new Little Caesars Arena just made it that much better. And then to have Jeff there, not only Jeff, but Brady Munger is one of their equipment hands, and he's a BGSU grad. And to be able to use those two guys as way into the Red Wing facility and the Red Wing space, it just made the experience all that more exciting for our guys. And then the icing on the cake was to play well. You play Michigan in Detroit. You're the underdog in the visiting team for sure. And we felt like we played two pretty good games. And actually, it kind of was a jump start for a second half of the season. The first game back before the Great Lakes Invitational was Western Michigan here at home. We did not play well. And the Great Lakes kind of made us forget about that real quick and got us on a pretty good trajectory to have a good second half.
So, just speaking on that relationship with Blashill and, your development as a coach, when would you say that you really wanted to be a hockey coach?
I'm not sure there was a time. I got a call in 1998 when I was still playing some minor pro. We weren't married yet. I hadn't really established my personal life, and I didn't feel I was ready. And then when I got the call in 2000 or later in 99 from Rico, I started to think about it. And I felt like this is an opportunity that I probably didn't even understand how big of an opportunity it was. And I sat down and talked to my wife at the time, to Janice at that time, and said, what do you think? Obviously, we weren't going alone. Our one son had just been born. But it felt like it was a time to maybe transition from minor pro to player, or to coach, excuse me. And what I thought at the time was it was the next best thing to playing, was coaching. Now, the first couple of years, I wasn't sure. I still kind of have the player mentality, and I really wasn't sure what it meant to be a coach. And I feel like I started to establish, the end of year 2, year 3, year 4, and so on, that this is what I want to do. I really like this. There's some sacrifice when it comes to family and so on, but what job doesn't have that? But I get to go to the rink every day, and I get to talk about hockey, and I get to coach hockey, and then the big part of it was I felt like I was making an impact on some of these young people's lives. It's not always, and some impacts are bigger than others, but I think at some level you are making an impact on these kids' lives and the decisions they make as they grow up. And those years from 18 to 22 or 19 to 23 or something, those are pretty formative years. And these kids are growing up and they're going through all these different things and making decisions, good and bad. And I really have become a fan of watching them grow up and watching them go through that and being a sounding board, sometimes the hammer if need be, or just somebody that's in their life during that time that can make an impact and hopefully shape them into better human beings, better brothers and sons, and potentially better fathers and husbands. And that is big stuff, and that's what keeps me in coaching. That kind of being able to make that kind of impact on these people's lives. Now, I would not have said that back in 2000 when we picked up and moved. But here we are in 2018, turning 18-19 season. That's what this is about for me, is the impact we get to make on these kids' lives.
So how would you say your development as from head coach or assistant coach to head coach has changed in terms of the position as well, and also dealing with players and how they have changed over the years?
Yeah. First of all, going from that assistant coach chair to the head coaching chair, for me, was almost like becoming a dad. You can't really understand what it's going to be a dad until you become a dad, and you can get people's advice. You can ask, what is it going to be like to be a head coach, and those kind of things. But until you're sitting in that chair, you don't know. So I feel like I'm a little more comfortable in my own skin when it comes to that chair. By no means is that because I think we've arrived. I don't think we've proven or accomplished what we want to accomplish. But I do feel like the experience has made me a little more comfortable in my own skin when it comes to being the head coach. And I feel like I hope the players would agree with this. I'm just a little more calm and a little more. I preach, let's not get too high or too low. Well, the first few years I couldn't live that. I was either too high when it was good and too low when it was bad, and I preach a little more of a level play, just a level mindset on a daily basis. I think I'm better at that. No, you'd have to ask the assistant coaches and the players and so on if that's the case. I mean, someone would probably argue that point, but that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm a little more secure in the job.
So I think I have this right. Your dad owned or still owns, I'm not sure, a McDonald's in Wellsburg, Ontario? Mm-hmm. Did you ever help him out with that?
Oh yeah. Every summer, that was my spending money. I was lucky enough to have a scholarship, so I didn't have to pay for school, but my spending money was my responsibility, and that was flipping burgers. I think the better part of 4 or 5 summers anyway.
Did you have to pay for meals at all?
No, we got the family discount for sure. That was one of the perks, and I think there was a bunch of people that pretended to be my friend because of that. So if they go to McDonald's with me, they get a free meal.
So I just want to read a quote to you from George McPhee, GM of the Lakers, but that's obviously He said, "The school made a great decision in hiring Chris Bergeron, and a national championship isn't out of the question with that coach. He gets the maximum effort out of that team, and they seem to be getting better players every year, and they have a realistic chance to win. So what does that mean to you, and what do you think that means to your team?"
Well, for me, it's a humbling statement. I think George McPhee is one of the more successful general managers in the business, and I think it's because of the person George is that he has supported me and us for the whole 9 years. I met him fairly early in my tenure here. I had never met him before. He was the general manager in Washington at the time. Greg Christopher, who was the athletic director here at the time, and I went to Washington and met with George. And from that day, we'd kind of established a relationship and a rapport. And at that level, he's the one that's building the team. There's coaches that coach it, but he has to build it in terms of the personnel and the people. So to be able to use him as a sounding board and pick his brain a little bit on how to build something from the ground up, which is what we felt we were doing, that is, it's been invaluable. And then just his friendship, and to see the success he's had and so on and so forth is a pretty neat thing. What it means to our players, I hope, because it's one thing to say it, but we need our players to believe it in their heart. I think when Rob Blake and George and Nelson Emerson and Bilesma and even Ty Agner came to Bowling Green. They believed in their heart they were coming here to win at a really high level because that's what had been established, whether while they were here or before them. It was hard for us in 2010 to truly believe in our heart that we were going to win at that level because we just didn't have the talent. To hear a general manager at the professional hockey level talk about the players we're getting, talk about our program being from a winning standpoint. Hopefully it means to our players that there's no limit to what we can be as a hockey program at BG. There's no limit. There's never been a limit to the student and to the kind of the experience you can have on this campus. But we want to add, this is a hockey program. We want to add the fact that doesn't change off the ice and in this campus and in this on this campus, in this community. But now we feel like on the ice, you can be a professional hockey player. We can win championships. We can go to national tournaments. And that's something that I believe that our players feel more in their heart than ever before. It's not pie in the sky anymore. It's not, I hope we can do that. I think they believe we can. And we have people like that saying it out loud. Hopefully the guys that are kind of on the fence are jumping on the good side and believing in it just like everybody else.
And, speaking of Golden Knights as well, you have Ryan Carpenter, who's had some great success with it.
Right.
And he was one of your first recruits here.
Yeah.
Right? So what is that, what would you, how would you represent that to your players as not only are we striving for team success here, but personal success is a big thing?
Well, once again, if you walk into our players' lounge and you look at the All-American wall and you look at the NHL wall, there's big shoes to fill from an individual standpoint. We've had, our Heisman Trophy is the Hobie Baker. We've had 2. Most programs don't have any. We've got Holzinger and McPhee. So from an individual standpoint, what do you want? You want to play in the NHL? Well, then you have to take advantage of an opportunity on a daily basis. Ryan Carpenter is one of those kids that nobody, in my experience, and I mean this, is a better example of that. He said this is what he wanted to do both on and off the ice, and every day that's what he did. He put himself in a position where he was going to get the absolute most out of his potential and his talent level and so on, and now he's the guy that we watch on television. Extremely proud, but what we use Ryan as an example of what you can achieve if you truly live what you say you want, because he's a guy that would do it. We would actually use him, and players would say, well, I want what Carpenter has, and we'd say, well, then follow him around for a week. And you tell me if that's something that you're willing to do every day, because that's what he would do. He would do it every day. He's not on TV and not in the NHL by accident. This is a kid that's absolutely earned it, and he deserves it. And I think he's an example to the 28 guys in that dressing room that whatever you want, go get it. It's available if you're willing to push yourself that hard.
And then lastly, just kind of looking at this season, you guys had some really, good underclassmen come in and have a huge impact on the team. And you also have a lot of underclassmen, or freshmen, I should say, coming in as well this year. So are you expecting the sophomores to sort of take a leadership role in that and lead by example almost and say, we've done this is what we did last year, we had great success, this is what you guys can do? Well,
first of all, we're never going to look at sophomores as the leadership of our group. We're going to look at the seniors and the upperclassmen, the juniors. I mean, our juniors and seniors aren't the typical 21 turning 22. Sometimes they're 23 and 22 turning 23 or whatever, so they're a little bit older. But we're going to look at them first. I don't think our lineup is going to have 9 freshmen in it like last year's lineup did at times. That sophomore class is going to be counted on to be a big part of this. And I think although we are deep at all positions and we do have kids returning, a lot of those guys returning are sophomores, and that makes it difficult because you don't know what you don't know even as a sophomore. I still consider you as an underclassman as a sophomore. So we'll look at those older guys. We've got a bunch of seniors. I don't know. They all probably haven't played as much as they would have wanted to play, but you look at the senior class and the junior class, there's a good number of kids in those 2 groups, and we'll have to look at them on how to act because we've been in these situations before. We've been in the WCHA championship game. We've been 2 points out of the regular season championship, and we need our older guys to show us the way there. Now, is not most of the talent, but do we have a bunch of talent in that sophomore class? Yes, we do, and we're going to have to lean on them to bring that talent every day and help us win games. So it's a good mix. We're going to look at those upperclassmen, in particular seniors, to lead the way. I do feel like the internal competition at all three positions is as high as it's ever been, which I feel like brings out the best in people. Now let's drop the puck and see how we do.
So, you talked about knocking down the door, and the competition, internal competition you have, and the depth that you have in your lineup. Who are you expecting to be first in line to knock down?
Well, again, the name that comes to my mind is Stephen Bayless. I mean, he's somebody that's been around here this is his 4th year. He's played in every situation. He's been close, but not quite. And then I look at his classmates. The 3 senior D and Smith, Polkamp, and McDonald are all 3 guys that want to be part of that championship team here at BG. It's just, I think senior year, you've kind of earned that. Now, we're going to have to go and prove it and go take it. And I feel if we look at those 4 guys in particular, I'm not taking anything away from Meyer or Shane Bednar or anything like that, but those 4 guys have played a bunch of hockey for us. And that's where my mind goes is, okay, how do you want to leave your legacy at BG? Are you going to let anything get in the way of us being the best version of the 18-19 team? You have to look at your seniors, because your team will go as far as your seniors take you. And those are the guys that come to my mind when I think about kicking the door down.
And then lastly, just 3 off-the-wall kind of questions to end it. Favorite Blue Jays player of all time?
Favorite Blue Jays player of all time? Dave Steed.
Okay. I was expecting Joe Carter. I don't know why. Favorite Seinfeld episode?
My favorite Seinfeld, man, I've got so many Seinfeld episodes.
I can break down the quote for you. What's your favorite Seinfeld quote?
My favorite Seinfeld quote? No, I mean, I can think of it. I mean, I got 10 episodes, right? I like the Soup Nazi one. I like that one. That's good.
Classic, yeah. And then go-to karaoke song.
Wanted Dead or Alive, Bon Jovi.
I was going to say, one Bon Jovi, one not Bon Jovi.
Yeah, well, my Bon Jovi is Wanted Dead or Alive. My non-Bon Jovi, I don't. I don't do this great, but I love doing it. It's "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey. That's a good one.
There's a reason why they call me.
I don't. The only thing I have in common with Steve Perry is the size of my nose. I think it might be a little bit bigger than his, but other than that, I just enjoy doing "Don't Stop Believing."
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me.
Tune in next time to Behind the Glass and Max Marko.